Love your work.
This is We Have Concerns. Hi, Jeff Canada.
Hi, Anthony
Hello,
Carboni.
concerned citizens.
Anthony, have you ever, even in an abstract sense, ever been tempted by the notion,
By the fruit of another?
or think it's tempted by the fruit of another?
Tempted, but the truth is discovered.
Have you ever wanted to give him something to talk about?
What's been going on?
I don't know why I went Bonnie. It's Bonnie.
Yeah, go
Raitt.
Bonnie
I don't know,
Raitt.
whatever. Has there ever been any sort of romantic notion in your mind of ever even remotely wanting to participate in the running of the bulls?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I thought you were going to say hell no.
Oh no! When I was a kid, when I was a youth, I was like, yeah, I'll go to the running of the bulls. Because here's the thing about the running of the bulls: the running of the bulls connects to my entire philosophy, which is you don't need to be in front; you just have to not be last.
just a life motto.
That's my life
really.
motto. You don't have to be in front, but you just don't have to be. You just can't be last.
Yeah.
You cannot be last.
For me, the reason that I always romanticized it was City Slickers Part 1. The first City Slickers, when they start the movie, they're doing that. I was like, that's what lifelong friends do. They all get together and they go to Pamplona and run with the bulls.
Everybody does it. It's you get your bar mitzvah. Then there's you go off to war at 18. You come back and get married right at 22. And then, you're married for, for 15 to 20 uneventful years. And then you either, at 35 run for president, or at 40, you go with your friends to run with the bulls.
Yeah.
That's life.
So,
baby.
you run one way or the other. Yeah. Yeah. I think I grew out of that notion, and I would never do it now. But there was a period of my life where if somebody was like, "Hey, I got tickets, let's do this," I'd be like, "I'm in. I'm doing it."
Yeah, if somebody was like, "Hey, man, I've set everything up for you to come with me to the running of the bulls," I'd probably still do it. My thing about the running of bulls is like, I was disappointed to find out the running of the bulls is too far away in terms of the calendar. To the tomato throwing festival, which is also in Spain.
Oh, you can't double dip.
That's the thing, is I'd like to book one trip.
Sure.
Do the running of the bulls, knock them both out if I could.
In fact, I'd like to run to the tomatoes, pick them up, and start throwing them.
Can we put these together like obstacle course style? Is there a way we could double dare this?
Bull chases me to a giant vat of ready tomatoes.
That's right. You throw the tomatoes, you hit 5 people, you get on a zip line, you go down the zip line, you hit a big red button that dumps slime on you, and then you've won Spain, and you never have to go back to Spain.
And then you get a jamon y queso, and everybody's happy.
That's right. The people throw them at you while you're running the obstacle course, like they do for little glasses of water with marathon runners.
Just getting jamon y queso.
That's right. It's just like, boy, you look like you need some ham right now. You're running out of energy. You're flagging. Here's some pork and dairy.
Let's make that a thing. I'm ready. Just hand me a sandwich.
Dude, if somebody handed you a sandwich in the middle of a marathon, and I know that you've run marathons, but if somebody handed you a sandwich in the middle of a marathon, you would simply sit down. I know you.
That's a fair point.
I know you. You would sit down. You'd be like, I'm not going to waste a sandwich.
I would eat that sandwich. In fact, I'd be like, is anybody else not eating theirs?
I know we've all trained for like 8 months for this, but I'll tell you what. If somebody's going to go through the trouble of making a sandwich, I'm certainly going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a target time, but I could add 10 minutes.
I could add 10 minutes or 15, 20, whatever.
The reason I ask about the running of the bulls is there's a new study that was just released in the journal Nature. It was brought to our attention on the Discord. One of the big ones. Yeah.
Congratulations on being published in Nature, whoever the hell got published in Nature.
These guys.
Yeah, congratulations, these guys. Who sent it to us on the Discord?
You're not going to like it. It's our old friend Cahoots, Jeff Engelstein.
You too can submit a story and perhaps end Jeff Engelstein's reign of terror on this podcast. Truly, all you got to do is head to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns to find out how.
Yeah. Also, I would highly suggest checking out Jeff Engelstein's amazing book, The Universe Explained with a Cookie. Really fantastic book, a science book.
How many fucking board games did he send you to say that?
I mean, few, but
it's a non-zero number. I know that.
It is a non-zero number. He's a great board game designer as well. Anyway, this is a story, or this is a study that used data mined from Pamplona and that festival, the Spanish Bulls Festival. This is a study about crowds and the movement of crowds. And it turns out, we've all got a concept in our head. I'm assuming if you've heard of Pamplona and the running of the bulls, you have a concept in your head of what that looks like. It's, these packed streets that they've cleared, and there's people running, and they're all dressed in white shirts and red scarves, and there's bulls chasing them, right? Well, that's what I have in my head. But it turns out the kicking off of that festival it involves no bulls, but it involves a whole bunch of people packed into a very small location. The festival, which is called the San Fermin Festival, which is held every year in Navarre, capital of Navarre, which is Pamplona.
Yeah, Navarre.
It's weird. All the people wear white shirts and red bandanas and weird visors over their eyes. Right. I don't get it. Anyway, 5,000 people pack into a space that is 50 meters long and 20 meters wide, which is not enough space for 5,000 people, I would think.
No.
It's a very small space, but a huge ton, just a huge amount of people are packed in there. And this is, before the bulls are even involved. It's just sort of the kicking off of the festival.
Yeah, this is everybody get in here.
Party.
We're going to open the gates, and you're going to bust out of these gates as quickly as you can, because somewhere down the road, there's probably a second set of gates, and we open those, and the bulls come running.
Yeah, but there's like music and stuff that's going to happen later. But it's just a gathering of all the people that are all amped up and ready to freaking run for their lives. Well, it also happens to be a pretty consistent and well-filmed event that you can go back to year after year after year and see the same space, the same exact location with the same insane number of people packed into one spot. So these researchers went, hey, why don't we use this footage and analyze it year over year and see if we can determine some organizing principles about how people that are packed together in these large groups behave.
Okay.
Because
I would imagine they run. I would imagine the way they behave is gate open and they run.
Well, yes, but this is before that, right? The idea here is we're trying to learn something about people in large groups because
I bet they mostly look like they have to go to the bathroom. I bet they mostly look like they have to go to the bathroom and that they're a little disappointed they can't can't partake in the rest of the festival.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I would think that it's a lot like the people that go to Times Square on New Year's Eve and they get there like really early because they lock everybody that's in Times Square into like half a block too. And I would imagine it's like Times Square where they get there and when they first get there, everybody looks really happy and cool and like, oh my God, I can't wait for this thing to happen, this exciting thing. And then as the day goes on and they realize that they've been locked in this tiny space for 8 hours and there's another 8 hours to go, they all look like they're going to claw each other to death and pee on each other.
Pretty much. Yeah, sounds like you've been to a music festival before.
Yeah.
You've been to you went to a.
I don't need to head all the way to Navarre, Burton.
That's right. Yeah. So basically, the idea here is people in a constrained space. They're trying to learn about any type of large event where a bunch of human beings get all pressed up next to each other is a potentially dangerous thing, right? You don't need to just unleash bulls to have people get hurt. Just people pushed together will get hurt. In fact, I've never heard about this. Maybe you have, but in July of 2010, there was something called the Love Parade disaster.
Oh yeah,
this was in Germany, in Duisburg, Germany. There were 21 people killed and dozens more injured at this, I now ironically titled Love Parade, that was this huge free outdoor music festival.
Yeah, it's like an outdoor rave.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they said between 200,000 and 1.4 million people showed up. They don't know exactly. It's a big range, but there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there was, some, a lot of dispute as to what really caused it, but there was some, poor planning or poor organization or, whatever it was. But there were people cramped into a large space, and people started panicking, and a bunch of people got trampled and killed. And it spelled the end of this Love Parade, which was an annual event and hasn't been put on since. It was a real tragedy. 21 people dead. And, these things, we hear about these things periodically of, huge packed stadiums or outdoor concerts or whatever it is where, people are having to stand in one spot, and then all of a sudden, people are suffocated or trampled or whatever it is. It's dangerous. So the idea here is let's figure out if we can learn something about how these crowds move and, maybe have an early warning system to try to prevent some kind of tragedy.
Okay.
Because in the past, research into how crowds move has relied on something called heuristic collision modeling, which basically is a fancy way of saying people learn how you are about to bump into them, and they don't want you to bump into them, and so they move in certain ways. It's learned behavior. Right. That's like, hey, I don't want you to bump into me. I'm going to bump into that guy. It's human beings trying to avoid bumping into each other. But the problem with that model is it only works for small groups of people. Because once you get to this kind of level of density, you're not able to be in control of your own movement.
I was going to say, I think about going to, like you're saying, going to a show, going to a concert or something. And once you get up in that crowd and the crowd is dense enough, it's like, dude, you're just going, you just kind of let your body go and go whatever way the wind blows you at that point.
Right. That's right. That's because you have no control of it. There's a larger thing happening here. We have become part of an organism that is made up of all of our bodies.
And I am the quiet, frustrated part of the organism that is simply going loose because I don't want to push any closer. I don't want to scream any louder. I simply want to exist at this point. That's where I'm at. I bet this study has a name for people like me.
Grumpy?
Well, sure, but everyone's grumpy. The thing about being in a crowd like that is everyone's grumpy, but some people get aggressive. Some people start throwing bows and they start pushing and shoving.
Well, I'm sure there's a claustrophobia that starts.
And some people like me are I wonder if I just go loose at the knees here, am I still going to be standing? Are people pushing up against me that much? Yep, they sure are. Yeah. I guess this is the way I live now. I guess for the next 70 minutes, this is my life.
The thing that, you're kind of getting at the real revelation from this study, which is...
It's one guy. It's all one guy. In every crowd, there's one dude, and he just starts shoving everybody. Everybody's like, ugh. And they're like, man, I wonder, this feels like it's such a complex system, and who knows what's pushing. No, it's one guy.
It's like the one jerk on the Ouija board.
That's right.
It's like, did you move it? No, I didn't move it. Did you move it? No, I didn't move it. One of you is moving it. I know one of you is moving it.
That's not my grandma's name. That's not even my grandma's name. So that can't be her.
Right. Unless she forgot her name, which seems highly unlikely, but I don't know what happens when you die.
No, it's one guy and his name is Rick.
Rick
is in the crowd.
Moving what's happening here is the movement of large crowds, once they reach a certain density, is absolutely predictable.
Say what?
And this is where my imagination just grabbed onto this story. This is why I think this is a fascinating one, because, as you well know, Anthony, one of the first sci-fi novels I ever read when I was young and impressionable, and it turned me on to sci-fi, was Foundation.
Sure.
Isaac Asimov's Foundation.
About Lee Pace wrote that.
He just started it. I could not get into the TV show, man. I wanted to.
I know you were waiting for so long for it. I'm sorry.
Anyway, the notion behind the foundation of Foundation is that there's this dude, Harry Seldon, and he figures out this thing called Psycho
Crusher, and it's a quarter circle forward.
What is it called? Psycho something.
And kick.
Anyway, it's a new science that he devises that lets him basically predict the future. But he can't predict what you are going to do or what I'm going to do or what anybody else is going to do. But when he gets to a big enough, a macro enough level of human beings, now he can predict things very, very scientifically.
Yes.
Right? If you get to a high enough scale of human beings, well, then all of a sudden the patterns emerge, and he develops this thing called the Foundation to be able to, influence the generational tide of human history.
Yeah.
Awesome concept, which totally captured my imagination as a kid. And I love the idea of I can't predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen, but if we take a long enough, wide enough view, then yes, things all do fall into these patterns. And that's exactly what's happening here.
Hey.
It's if you get enough people jammed into a tight enough space, all of a sudden their movements become predictable. You can't predict small crowds. You don't know what an individual person is going to be or a group of people. But when you get to a measurable density, and that measurable density is 4 human beings per square meter. That's tight, right?
Yeah.
Tight. So this
Psychohistory.
Space in psychohistory. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't come up with that. Thank you. Psychohistory.
Sorry.
Harry Seldon, the father of psychohistory. Guess cachet. Anyway, so
you get 4 people crammed into a meter.
Yeah, in a 1 square meter spot. So this 50 by 20 meter patch of land that it gets 5,000 people in it. It starts at the beginning of the day with people and waddling in and assembling in that space, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And so they were able to watch this sort of evolution of this crowd as it goes from being a smattering of people to a full dense organism. And what they noticed was it starts with 2 people per square meter, and you can't really, I don't know, who knows what's going to happen. But once you get to 4 people per square meter, all of a sudden they start developing these movement patterns, this oscillation that is not tied to any external motivating force, right? There's no person on a bullhorn saying, everybody go over here. There's no music that's a rhythm. There's nothing that is happening. It's just people waiting for something to start. So they're just all standing there milling around. But year after year, they looked at it, 2019, 2020, all the way up through 2024. There were all these years of this sort of top-down bird's eye view of this patch of Spain. And they were able to map, they used, software to literally identify individual heads of people.
Yeah.
And so they mapped it like a swarm of dots,
right? It would look like, I imagine it looks like ocean waves or wind through grass or something like that.
Right. And so they start oscillating like fluids. And these oscillations are mappable, predictable, and they always happen. And they said they never last more than 18 seconds.
Okay.
They can last, variables up to that, but they never saw any last up more than 18 seconds. And they are you can map them, the frequency of them, you can map to how dense the crowd is getting. So there's this moment where the band, they lead this marching band through the crowd, like it's this big moment, but the band isn't playing. They're just moving from one place to another to get to where they need to go. So
what a show. What a festival. Get there early,
like
kids.
I'm saying, they're all sort of packed,
get there
waiting
early,
to
you
get in.
Won't wait. The kids all love the slow moving of the marching band.
The slow moving of the non-playing marching
The running
band.
of the bulls, forget that. It's the slow meandering of the silent marching band, which is why most kids go.
Yeah.
Wait until you see.
You take your life in your hands, but it's worth
wait until you see the staging of the puppets. It's not a puppet show. They just get the puppets out there.
That's right. They just move them into position.
This festival, you're gonna love it. Oh, the smells of the smells of the street food, which is not there. There is no street food there, but they do have the smells, and that is wonderful. And everybody enjoys the smells and the silence and the lack of bathrooms and the puppets that are not animated. And it's beautiful.
And then the oscillation starts.
Oh, and then the oscillations, but it only lasts 18 seconds.
Together.
So get there for that 18 seconds.
You don't want to miss it.
So at the end of this 18 seconds, here's what I want to know. At the end of this 18, we'll get back to this marching band in a second, but at the end of this 18 seconds, what happens? Is it a reset into another predictable pattern? Is it a moment of chaos? What is it after the 18 seconds? Because they're there for hours, right?
It's like, I think you hit on the correct metaphor. So imagine we're like looking down on a swimming pool or an ocean or whatever, and you see, a ripple start, and it lasts for 18 seconds or however long, and then it fizzles out, and then another one over here happens.
Okay.
It's that kind of thing.
It's like each of these ripples fits into one of these predictable patterns.
That's right.
But they are only 18 seconds long. That's interesting.
It said the oscillations lasted for up to 18 seconds, and Bartolo, who is this researcher, and his colleagues pointed out that they could quantify and predict these oscillations. And they're not caused by external stimuli. It's just sort of spontaneous emergence of what they call
psychohistory.
Gosh, what's the psychohistory? No, it's they call it like odd friction, and it's caused by the fact that your feet are on the ground,
head in the clouds,
and that's right.
But it's all right. I know nothing's wrong.
And your body is above that, so it's the difference in friction between your feet on the ground and your body bumping up against other human beings. And so these sort of leans and like, how like you're sort of pushed and then your feet trail behind you a bit.
Off of your center of gravity, but you're sort of being held in place by the support of the other people.
That's right.
And so it all becomes, I get it. We become one giant executive desk toy.
That's right. That's right. So what I was getting to with the band thing is that the band sort of bisects this area, and the authorities come through first, and they separate the crowd into sort of two halves, and the band goes through, and then the crowd kind of fills that space back in after the band has gone through. But during that period where the crowd has been separated in two halves, they've actually, and there's a new space that's been opened up between them, like the parting of the Red Sea.
I cannot imagine how cramped people are when that band is passing. I would lose it. I would lose it, dude.
Dude, you're already as pressed together as you could possibly imagine, and then you need to further move closer to one another. It's just crazy.
I can't even eat my jamon and cheese, my jamon y queso. I can't even touch it. They got to lower it to me like I'm a fish. And then you're going to push me tighter against people. So what happens when this band goes through?
So now you've got people pressed even closer together. The density has increased, but there is a barrier, a delineation marker between these two halves. So now they've become two independent organisms, and the oscillations increase in frequency in both halves. So because you've now pressed these people even closer together, it happens more frequently and independently of the other. So there, obviously there's no way to pass that wave into, across the divide.
We wind up with two executive desk toys.
That's right. So basically they come away from this realizing that like you can predict movement based on density,
but you can't
and you can predict density. And you can predict density based on movement.
Okay.
Right? Because it's a two-way street. And although in this case it's not, because just bands is going one direction. Right. You know what I mean? One direction. And they couldn't get one direction to play.
No, because they broke up.
So that's why they had the band. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm sure it was a lot hotter than 98 degrees where they were.
So and those guys that's a middle-aged man band now.
That's right. That's right.
So density leads to movement, movement leads to density.
Yeah. So basically the idea here being that, this is measurable and predictable. And so you can say, okay, from a safety point of view, once these things start happening at a certain rate, it's like we're in trouble. This is when the bad things are about to happen, because this is how densely packed people are. And this is, you're able to measure and predict.
Are there specific ripple patterns that they're saying are the ones that are the dangerous ones?
Well, so the thing that's wild is there's something called chirality, which is I've never heard of before, but chirality is a property of anything. There's molecular chirality. There's physical chirality. Chirality is basically whether something can be, if you see its mirror image, if it can be mapped 1-to-1 onto its mirror image. So it's basically if it's symmetrical, right?
Chirality. I think you're thinking of.
I said chirality.
Yeah.
I'm a moron.
I was like,
it is chirality.
I was like, okay, chirality. And I was like, no, okay, chirality. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm an idiot.
Chirality is asymmetry.
That's right. Pardon me.
No, you're good.
You could tell I'd never encountered that term before, but it's something that's now fascinates me. And this is so how chiral these oscillations are. Basically, it's like if it goes clockwise or counterclockwise, and that is something as yet they cannot predict whether the oscillation is going to go clockwise or counterclockwise. And they don't know if one is more dangerous than the other, but it is almost like ripples in the ocean where you're seeing stuff happening in these sort of these oscillating arcs. But obviously once that starts happening, that's when people are in danger.
So they can just tell. They're just looking to tell when the sea is angry.
The sea is angry. That's right.
They're looking to see when they looked off the bow and they saw the sea was angry that day.
Yeah.
And they knew that they were heading for trouble, and it was lash the men to the masts.
Yeah, exactly. Grab a buddy, I guess, and harbor hunker down for the storm.
Okay. So that's actually really cool. I think that's amazing because it means you can now look and see. I think of so many of these like concerts, music festivals, outdoor things, parades, things like you're talking about, where, I've been to so many where all of a sudden people are screaming like, hey, like security medic here, medic here, someone's down, someone's hurt, someone passed out,
right?
All this stuff. Obviously being able to predict where that's going to happen is great. But I think more than anything, using this sort of data to make sure that we don't overcrowd spaces has got to be the number one thing, right? Like there's so many times I'm at a music festival and people are so pressed up against each other. And it's like, dudes, we've got a whole football field behind us. Everybody just back up a little bit. We're going to kill each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I guess there's no way to stop. I guess from a security standpoint or a event planning standpoint, there really is no way to stop people from pressing up against each other in a crowd of 20,000.
Yeah, all you can do is give outlets, so you let sort of relieve the stress of density by letting people get out, or stop admitting new people, and that's really the only options that they have.
But that's the thing that falls short, right? Because you can look and you can have a safety inspector or a fire inspector, and you can look at it and go, "Hey, you shouldn't put more than 5,000 people on this floor." Because any more than 5,000 and that's unsafe. But what do you do when all 5,000 of those people have decided on their own independently to crush up against 1/4 of the space?
Yeah.
How do you stop that? Do you have to stop every song and go, okay, kids. All right, kids, everybody back up.
I mean, that's the question, right? Is at that point, what do you do? But at least
I hate to be the fun police, but leave a little room for the Holy Ghost there, kids.
Leave a little room for the Holy Ghost. That's what'll work with the kids.
The kids are really worried
it's all about
Holy
messaging.
Ghost.
Yeah, it's all about messaging. You got to speak their language.
You got to leave a little room for Jesus, kids.
That's
right.
And
the second you say that, you'd be amazed how quickly everybody at a concert just backs right up.
So they call these crowd quakes.
Crowdquake. I saw that on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
It was in between Sharknado and the other one.
Ironically, I saw Crowdquake open at Coachella.
Whoa!
And they did not.
No, that was the year I was there that year because they opened for Odd Friction.
They did.
And again, I unfortunately I had to miss Psychohistory because they were on the second stage, and I hated having to make that choice.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I could have predicted you would though.
Whoa! We got bits today. We got bits today, folks.
So they're saying that when crowd density reaches its maximal value, groups of several hundreds of confined people can undergo self-sustained oscillations over meters, and the mass of these macroscopic groups can exceed 10 tons.
Wow, man. So they've seen these patterns, and they've seen how they could predict them. They can see them. Is it Rick? Who's doing it? What causes these patterns?
No, it's that odd friction, which I don't know if odd is the word. Yeah, it is. Yeah, odd friction is what it's called. Odd friction.
So it's like these totally random movements of people that all of a sudden solidify into patterns.
That's right.
There's no way to figure out, like you're saying, it's like the foundation thing where it's like we can't point to the person who starts this.
Right. That's right.
Simply people are going to wiggle around enough for a long enough time, and then the patterns start.
Well, the fascinating part of this is they're applying this kinds of stuff to other living organisms, right, and groups. So the dynamics that you see in like a school of fish, like think of a nature video where you're seeing this massive school of fish, and they all sort of like dart one direction or another. There wasn't like one dude, one fish who was like, let's all go right. It just sort of like spontaneously groupthink happens, right? And that's kind of what's happening here as well, is that there's like these infinitesimal bits of movement that all get magnified because of the friction between like my inability to compensate at my foot level for what's happening at my shoulder level gets magnified over dozens and dozens and dozens of people to the point where it becomes these oscillations.
I remember one of the first things I ever like downloaded on my computer when I had a modem was there was something called Boids. You ever hear of Boids? It was like, hey, you Boids. It was named like that. It was birds, and it was a computer simulation of a flock of birds, and it was like trying to recreate with math how a flock of birds reacts. And it was just a simulation that you ran on your computer, and it like would make your computer run like a wind tunnel at the time. I'm sure now it's like run it on a wind.
Yeah, you could do it on your phone.
Run like phone, please. You could run it on your toaster at this point. Watch the beautiful birds going as you're waiting for your toast. But I remember watching it and being fascinated by it because there is no lead bird. You think there's a lead bird, and you think you've identified the lead bird until all of a sudden something happens and you go, oh, they went off in a totally different direction because all of a sudden they were following that bird, it looks like. But are they following a bird? Yeah. What is going on? Or is it just vibes? I also think about, I think it was was it Baraka or Koyaanisqatsi, the movie where they go into I think it's either a South American tribe in the rainforest, and they're all sitting in front of like in like a temple, and they do that thing where they're like chaka 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 chaka, and they're all moving in unison, but it's not a planned thing. They don't do it the same way every time. they can they just feel out the movements.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's so cool about this article is they show some of the data that they've collected. They show some of the film footage, and what they did is they put like windows of each year of the same, Pamplona stretch of land from an aerial view, like looking down on, straight down on people. And what they do is they put them all in windows, and then they like speed up the footage, like time lapse. And it's amazing because they're all doing the same movements year after year after year. They're all like doing the same pattern. And you realize like, oh my God, of course these scientists are like, look at that. It didn't take a computer simulation or you could just eyeball it and go, there's something organizing here. There's some principle that is determining this, because it's just consistent year over year. And you seeing it sped up like that is really amazing.
Yeah, that's wild.
The exact quote from the researchers is that they say, dense crowds self-organize into macroscopic chiral oscillators, coordinating the orbital motion of hundreds of individuals without external guidance. And I think that's the craziest part, is that it just emerges. It's like this behavior didn't exist. More people coming, doesn't exist. Standing next to you. We don't do this. And then at a certain tipping point, we start doing it. Just by virtue of the fact there's enough people in this space, we don't have a choice, but this is now how we move.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if you went back on that footage and you saw Rick. You
think Rick is up to some shenanigans?
Okay, they're speeding up the footage and they're like, look, this is where it happens. It's like, did you look for Rick? I know you're looking for density, but are you looking for like one asshole? Yeah. All it takes is a density of one asshole per meter, per 50 meters,
I think
per 100 meters.
Maybe you slow that footage back down and look for Rick.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Look for Rick. And he's probably staring right into your camera while he does it too.
Double middle fingers.
That's right. You just go enhance, and there's Rick. Double middle fingers, and he just throws a hip. Just
starts it right off.
Throws a hip, and then he goes from double middle fingers into like the bird, and he just like leans back into like big bird arms, and leans back, and he's so proud of himself. Right. Yeah. If you read to the end of the Foundation novels, because there are 3 of them. At the end, it's like it was Harry's friend from high school, Rick, just pushing things in the other direction. He's like, "Fuck it,
goddamn Rick." That's what Second Foundation's about. It's about
That's
Rick.
right. Also played by Lee Pace. Lee Pace plays both.
He's a versatile actor.
He's a versatile actor.
Good. Yeah, like that
He's
guy.
Amazing.
Remember Pushing Daisies?
You remember The Fall?
Tarsem.
Yeah, dude. What happened to Tarsem? Bring back Tarsem. What happens if you get 100 Tarsems into like 5 meters? Do they just make like the most visually wild film ever?
Beautiful.
With the least amount of plot?
The same oscillations, but so much more color.
That's right.
Yeah. So the reason I brought up this 2010 tragedy in Germany, the Love Parade thing, is that they went back and the German officials had released a video of that to try to explain why that happened and try to get to the bottom of how to prevent it from happening again. They looked at the footage from the Love Parade, and they found the same exact movements. So it is something that they hope will be able to be applied, not just retroactively, but proactively to if they're in a situation where you get huge groups and it gets dangerous, you can see, hey, here's how frequently these oscillations are starting. We need to,
do they know,
do something, move some people out of here.
Do they know why there were injuries and deaths at the Love Parade, but there aren't at the festival? Is it just...
Well, they were sort of pressed into a tunnel.
Okay.
And then people started freaking out, as one might expect. And they were people like climbing stairs. And it's horrible. I read the Wikipedia article on the Love Parade disaster, and it's a harrowing read.
So they were doing these predictable things that are indicators of too much density, and then they were thrown up against like a really unsafe variable that caused everybody to behave even more erratically. Okay.
Right. But, none of that happens if people don't start getting moved.
Right.
Right. That's what they're saying, is that movement, that shift is what leads to panic, right? Is that people start getting pressed up against one another and moved against their will.
Yeah.
And when those things start happening at certain frequencies, then you can sort of, that's when you get to the danger zone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I desperately, and I know this is physics beyond my ken, but I just want to know why it turns into the same patterns. Odd friction is that's like one of those things where the scientists are like, yeah, it's odd friction, and we're like, you mean for me to stop there?
That's right. Yeah, you can't call something like, wow, that's the crazy, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like, what? It's that's the weird occurrence. Like, what?
Yes, that is the weird occurrence.
At 48 degrees, you just get the weird occurrence. It's like, that's not an explanation.
And it's like, and I know that to the research community, it's like, no, but that's cool, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out if there's variables within odd friction, and like what we're going to find out even more granular patterns and blah blah blah. But me today, I'm like, you can't just tell me it's wacky physics.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, well, and then the wacky physics happens, and you do not want to be there when the wacky physics happens. And I'm like, no, I do, because now I want to know.
Yeah.
I have to be there when the wacky physics happens, because now I'm thinking to myself, is there something I could see on that video that you didn't see? And I know the answer is no, but I want to know.
So here's the I Googled odd friction. It says a phenomenon that goes against the expectation that more force is needed to slide a droplet that is resting on a surface.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
So it's something that goes against science. Now, here's what I'm going to say. I'm glad that we figured this out. How many teams we got working on this odd friction? How many teams are working on odd friction right now? If any of the concerned citizens out there are working on the odd friction, get in that Discord. Let us know.
Maybe it's more common than maybe it's a thing that's in there.
Dude, even if it's a thing that's in there, I'm telling you, as someone from the outside,
yeah,
I don't want to know.
Not enough explanation.
I don't want to know anything about your kooky math.
Yeah.
I want you to explain the kooky math. That's where I'm at.
I hear you, man. I'm right there.
Is there a
with you.
Bill Bryson or like Michio Kaku book that explains the kooky math in a way that idiots can understand? Because I want to be there.
Give me that. Yeah. This is a line from the Wikipedia page on the Love Parade, which I find really interesting in the context of this new study that was just released. The Wikipedia page says a 2012 scientific analysis of the causes of the disaster determined the earlier descriptions of the incident as a human stampede or crowd panic were incorrect, and instead found evidence of a phenomenon called crowd turbulence.
Crowd turbulence?
Which I think is just another way of saying what these guys are talking about. This is a crowd quake. This is just a normally occurring... There was no moment of panic. There was no stampede. There was no somebody shouting fire in a crowded theater. There was just this normal thing that emerges at a certain density of human bodies that then, put that into the fact that they had a tunnel and they couldn't move between this staircase, and there was this ramp with a billboard on it. So anyway, they had sort of, these external factors that caused people to get squished.
Yeah. So crowd turbulence, like looking here, it is basically what you're talking about here. It says it's when a crowd of people move erratically due to strong and rapidly changing forces. It can occur when crowds are very dense and people are in a hurry. So yeah, it sounds like, going through that tunnel or whatever immediately got people, it increased the density and then got people trying to get out of this tunnel very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine. I mean, obviously, this is a horrific thing, and I don't mean to make light of it or even pretend like I could put myself in that mindset, but it does seem to me that if you are in an enclosed space and you're pressed tightly up against people, and then this sort of normal oscillation starts, it might be easy to freak out and panic and feel like, oh my God, I got to climb up the staircase or get out of here or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a completely normal, predictable movie.
Yeah, they say,
and I think that's what's so.
They say that the difference between crowd collapses and human stampedes is a human stampede requires a large group of people to all get away from a perceived risk to life. So
like bulls.
Yeah,
like bulls.
So I could see why initially the authorities were like, well, clearly everybody was trying to get out of this tunnel or whatever. But then it looks like what this really is a crowd collapse or a crowd crush, which is like higher densities. They say it's about 10 people per square meter here. 10 people per square meter, people become so packed that they're crushed together to an extent that they can no longer breathe and are asphyxiated. So this happens a lot when crowds are funneled into a smaller space or when it meets an obstacle. So I would assume that you did get like a pressure wave at the Love Parade when people had to go from the wider street into a tunnel. So it wasn't that people were like immediately automatically panicking because they were in a tunnel. It seems like the density of the crowd just got to be too much.
Yeah.
And it's
you can mark that moment. Like these guys are able to now be able to potentially, measure that and know as we're approaching it based on how people are moving and how frequently.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is that they can now probably simulate that very well, right? Like going back to the idea of like that computerized simulation of birds or whatever. If you've got an outdoor festival or parade and you've got this route and everybody's moving through this route and you can estimate the crowd, it seems to me like now you have a much better chance of predicting a crowd collapse or crowd turbulence or something like that. You can be like, oh, that's a friction point right there.
Yeah,
that's wild. Here's the thing. I could tell you that my preferred crowd density is 1 person to 3 meters.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So
just inform all the people in the
running of the bulls,
the music festival, the running of the bulls. Just inform all of them that you need I need more meters,
that's right.
Please.
We're all in the pen about to run from the bulls. And there's me in the middle going like, excuse me, guys, I need just a little more space if I'm going to do this today. I don't know why if we could just all back away just a little bit.
Just give me I need a little.
But here's my thing about the festival. So we're looking at 4 people per meter here, which is not quite to the crowd collapse level, but I would imagine when you start walking the silent marching band through, you get a little closer to that level. Is there a reason why they have to put them in that small a space, or is it just tradition? That's what I'm asking.
I think it's just tradition. Yeah, it's just tradition. And it doesn't seem like there's much involved in the running of the bulls that is, decided on safety first criteria.
No,
what I mean?
It feels like It feels like the second you bring in a safety inspector to the running of the bulls, the first thing they're going to say is, you should try not having these bulls chase these people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna suggest just canceling the whole event is what I'm gonna suggest.
Yeah, here's what I'm gonna say: fewer bulls, more of those sandwiches.
Yeah, there's a way to do the band, just over here, just away from the, just have the band.
Don't have them walk in. You can have them go through another way.
Just go around the backside. There's another street right over there.
Yeah, far be it from me to critique another culture's traditions.
Sure.
But I would love to know why we can't just get a bigger pen for the people who are about to run for their lives. Give them space to really get to really get a good start, is what I would say.
That does seem like something I would insist on, is like, give me a real good runway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to get up to speed. There are bulls coming.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but they move.
These bulls, those bulls are going to move, dude. These bulls, I don't know if you heard, fast, strong,
they're
angry. As a matter of fact, like, you know, the entire, I'm not going to come down once again on anybody's traditions or an entire country. God knows we've got enough problems here. I would just say to Spain, reconsider the way you interact with bulls entirely. I would say, think about...
more of a live and let live kind of situation, perhaps.
I would say just chill on bulls, maybe. I would say like the running from them, the fighting of them.
The stabbing of them with
thin swords, with rapiers.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing? I don't even know. But here's what I would say about Spain and their history with bulls. Little combative.
Yeah.
A little combative. If I listen, maybe take 3 steps back and figure out whether you're part of the problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Take a long, hard look in the mirror.
I walked by a bull on a farm once and it didn't do shit. And I think it's because I simply did not anger the bull.
Well, you're not Spanish.
No.
They know.
No.
I think they know.
The bull seemed a little insulted by my Spanish.
Which
is fair, because I took 7 years of French in school. I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I could understand that. But he seemed more perturbed than ready to attack, if I'm honest.
My favorite quote from this whole thing, this gets to something that you were questioning as well early on. My favorite quote, there's an interview that one of the co-authors of the study, a fellow by the name of Francois Gu, G-U, he was interviewed by Nature, and the quote
that is pulled in this article. Of Francois Ouija. We're a science podcast.
We are. Award winning. Yeah.
They did try to take the award back.
They did. To their credit, they did. This is the Francois Gu's quote. He says, and I quote, "I was like, what is this? Why 18 seconds?
Yeah. Thank you, Francois.
Yeah.
As long as...
There's no answer. No answer to that.
As long as I'm in the same spot as these researchers by the end, I think I'm okay. It's if the researchers know a little bit more that they aren't explaining correctly, or in a way, and by correctly, I mean for dumb people. I know that nature is for other scientists, but shut up and explain it to me, a fool. But it seems like I have all the same questions they do.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you really nailed it with that one. Because he was like, what?
I was like, what? I love that that's in the article. I love any time a scientist is like, I was like, what? I was looking at it, I was like, that's crazy.
That's some odd-ass friction.
This isn't like regular friction, said the scientist. This is like odd friction.
The hell's going on here, man?
I would love it if that was in the conclusion. You're reading the abstract and the methodology, and then you get to the conclusion. It's like, in conclusion, our team was like, what?
Yeah.
In conclusion, our team was like, nah, that's weird.
They list Francois Gu as co-author, but I'm gonna guess the other guy did the heavy lifting.
Feels like.
It
feels like we know who did the most in the group project.
I'm like, my name's on it though, right? Like I'm co-author. Like we're
both cool here. Like right? We're cool like goo. That's what I always say. So there you go. I would say the takeaway to this for all concerned citizens listening is bring a yardstick to any outdoor event that you're going to be in.
That's right.
And measure the crowd density of where you're standing at any given time. Just throw the yardstick out there. People will be fine with it.
Yeah.
And really just see what the density is on the fly.
On the fly. And then you can tell people like, hey, guess what? We're about to oscillate up in here.
We're about to oscillate wildly.
I don't know about you, man, but I can tell by our density that we are about to get freaky.
Yeah, shit's about to get wild up in here with this density. And that's how you know you're in a good, that's how you know if you want to be in the pit when the pit breaks out, that's how you know.
Can I tell you something?
Please.
I've carried on, but my soul broke at the fact that I said chirality.
No.
That is real dumb.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It was
No, it's not. It's
dumb.
one of those things. Hey, listen, we're going to do this right now. And this is to everybody that's listening as well. There are words that you have maybe only heard and never read, or you've read and never heard out loud. It's not on you to be able to pronounce them correctly immediately. This is why.
I should have.
No, Jeff, as somebody who had to do science stories to a large audience for years, I've fucked that up a couple times, because sometimes you're in a room full of people and you all ask each other and you're like, what is it? Oh, okay, that's what it is. And then you're like, you come out and you say something and it's wrong and whatever.
The worst is when you don't think to ask. You just read it and assume, and you don't take an extra second to go, was my assumption wrong?
Maybe we're recording. We're not live, but we're recording live. We're in a live recording environment. You didn't have time. You didn't have time beforehand. I said record, and we did. And you didn't even ask. And I was like, we're going now, baby.
This notion of chirality, though, is really fascinating to me. It's super interesting. Like, there's molecules that have chirality that, that don't, they're not symmetrical.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating. Your hands, your left hand and your right hand aren't symmetrical. They're not.
Chirality.
It's cool.
Your whole body has chirality.
Achiral means symmetric.
That's right.
Which is sort of like fiction and nonfiction. It's kind of counterintuitive. But.
Yeah. That's what I like about it. I like that it's one of those words that's out there to confuse you.
You
know what I mean?
On me.
That's right. It did its job. Don't you worry. That's what it's there for. That's what it's there for. Hey, everybody, if you ever want to check on the pronunciation of a word before you say it out loud, a bunch of science-minded people are hanging out in our Discord right now, and they're happy to help you.
They're there to help you pronounce it right, and also share science stories and pictures of their pets and all kinds of fun stuff. It's our Discord, and it is an exclusive club that is only available for people that care enough about this show to support it, even at just $1 a month.
That's right.
That's what we do.
That's right. Pay to be cool. And the more you pay, the cooler you are, and the more stuff we give you, including bonus episodes, extra audio, Q&As, video. You can see the whole shebang over at patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. It's the only way we support the show. And so we hope that you will help us out. Patreon.com/wehaveconcerns.